You worked hard this year. Maybe you got a raise, maybe a promotion. Maybe you took on more responsibility, said yes to things you didn't have to say yes to. And yet, at the end of the month, it still feels like you're running out of money before you run out of month. You're not broke. You're employed. You're doing everything you were told to do. But somehow, it feels like you're barely moving forward. And the worst part? You can't quite figure out why. Because nobody told you about the invisible forces quietly eating your salary alive. That's what this video is about. My name is Sai, and I spend a weird amount of time understanding how money, income, and cost of living actually work in Canada, so you don't have to. Quick thing before we dive in. This isn't financial advice. This is about understanding why things feel the way they feel, not telling you what to do with your money. All right, let's get into it. Let's start with something that happens to almost everyone. You get a raise. 3%, maybe 4%, maybe 5% if you pushed for it. And for a few days, it feels good, like you made progress, like things are finally moving. Then a few weeks pass. You check your bank account and something feels off. It doesn't look that different. So you start doing the math. The raise sounded big, but the actual difference, after taxes, is maybe a couple $100s a month, maybe less. And somehow, that money just disappears. You didn't spend it on anything obvious. It just got absorbed by groceries, by rent, by insurance going up, by life quietly getting more expensive. And you're left thinking, I literally make more money now, so why does nothing feel different? This is one of the most common experiences in Canada right now. And it's not because you're bad with money. It's because something bigger is happening, something structural, something you don't see from inside your own paycheck. When your employer gives you a 3% raise, it sounds simple, 3% more money. But that's not what actually happens. First, taxes. Canada has a progressive tax system, which means the more you earn, the more of each extra dollar gets taxed. So that 3% raise on paper might turn into 1.5% in your pocket, maybe less. Then comes inflation. Prices have gone up, and even though inflation has cooled a bit, the prices didn't come back down. Groceries are still expensive. Rent is still high. Everything costs more than it used to. So now think about this. If inflation is around 3% and your raise after taxes is 1.5%, you're not getting ahead. You're actually falling behind. Quietly, every year. This is what economists call negative real wage growth, but you don't need the term to feel it. You already do. Here's the simplest way to picture it. Imagine you're on one of those moving walkways at the airport, the kind that carries you forward. Now, imagine you're walking, but the walkway is moving in the opposite direction. The walkway is inflation. Your walking speed is your raise. If the walkway moves faster than you walk, you're losing ground, even though you're moving. That's exactly what's happening. And that's just one part of it. Now, let's talk about something else that a lot of people don't fully understand: taxes. Most people know tax brackets exist, but they don't really understand how they work. And because of that, a lot of people actually hesitate to earn more. They think, if I make more money, I'll get pushed into a higher bracket and lose it. That's not how it works. Canada's tax system is marginal, which means you only pay higher tax on the portion of income above each threshold. Think of it like buckets. The first bucket gets filled and taxed at a low rate. The next bucket gets taxed slightly higher, and so on. You don't suddenly lose money by earning more. That part is a myth. But here's what's real. Between federal tax, provincial tax, CPP, and EI, a large portion of your income never reaches your account. If you're earning around $80,000 in Ontario, you're losing roughly 28 to 30% of your income to taxes and deductions. That's about 1 out of every $3, gone before you even see it. Again, not a complaint, but it matters because it explains why your salary feels smaller than it sounds. Now, let's talk about something else that's the sneakiest factor of all: lifestyle creep. This one has nothing to do with the government, nothing to do with inflation. It's internal. When you earn more, your idea of normal changes. At $45,000, you're careful. You cook at home. You take transit. You think before you spend. At $60,000, things loosen up. More takeout. Better apartment, maybe. At $75,000, it happens again. You don't consciously decide to spend more. It just happens. And years later, you're earning almost double what you started with, but saving the same amount, or less. This is lifestyle creep, and it's driven by something called hedonic adaptation. Humans get used to better things very quickly. The upgrade feels exciting at first, then it just becomes normal. So you chase the next upgrade, and your spending follows. In Canada, this is even stronger because lifestyle is visible. Where you live, what you drive, where you travel. There's pressure, subtle but real. And before you realize it, your income rises and your expenses rise with it. So nothing changes. Now zoom out, because Canada specifically has its own set of pressures. Housing. This is the biggest one. In many cities, housing costs have exploded. A huge portion of income now goes to rent or mortgage, sometimes 40, 50, or even 60%. That leaves very little room for anything else. Then groceries. You feel this every week. You buy the same things and somehow pay more. Over a year, that's thousands of dollars gone. Then interest rates. If you have debt, you're paying more, quietly, every month. And then the labor market. More people, more competition, slower wage growth in some sectors. All of this creates one thing: a squeeze. Your income goes up, but your expenses go up faster. And that's why income alone isn't enough anymore. So what actually works? This is where things shift. There are two types of people: people who earn money and people who build wealth. They can make the same salary, work just as hard, but end up in completely different places because one group uses money differently. They pay themselves first, before anything else. They invest, not just save, and they stop relying only on income. Because income has a ceiling, your time is limited, but investments don't have that limit. They grow in the background. So the goal isn't to quit your job, it's to stop depending on it alone. Think of your job like a table. Most people have one leg, their job. If that breaks, everything collapses. So you add more legs. TFSA. Most people don't use it properly, but inside it, your growth is tax-free. That's powerful. Index funds. Simple, diversified, no guessing. And then income growth, because cutting has limits, earning doesn't. Even a few hundred extra a month invested consistently changes everything. And all of this comes down to one shift, from consumer to owner. Consumers spend, owners build. Once that clicks, everything changes. Your job becomes the engine, your investments create freedom. So keep it simple. Know your real take-home. Check your TFSA. Automate your savings. Find one expense to cut. Intercept your next raise. That's it. If this helped you see things more clearly, consider subscribing. Because here's the truth. If your salary feels stuck, you're not broken. You're just operating inside a system that doesn't work the way you were told it does. But once you see it, you can change how you play the game. Your salary is the starting point, not the strategy. And the gap between where you are and where you want to be isn't as big as it feels. It just requires different decisions. That's it. I'm Sai. I'll see you in the next one.